Hello everyone, I'm back and today I'm going to talk about company culture, which is a very important part of your startup. Uh, there's a famous saying which says, culture eats strategy for breakfast, and I completely agree with this. I have lived through this, right? And what the statement essentially means is that if you have the wrong culture, right, no doubt how good your strategy is, you are going to fail, right? So that's what the importance of company culture is. In today's video, I'm going to talk about from my own experiences working at my startup, how I started with the culture building thing, what I used to perceive company culture as, and what I perceive it as now, and how I executed around the company culture bit, right? So first, let's start with understanding what company culture is. So I still clearly remember 4 years back when I started. Uh, my definition of company culture, as with any startup founder, was what games do I have for my team members, right? Are we having lavish parties after work, right? Are we boozing around, right? Are there any snacks after work, right? So over a period of time, I got to understand that this is not what your company culture is. These are just perks and benefits. Company culture essentially is the set of values, beliefs, attitudes, behaviors, whatever you call them, which bind your entire team together. And it's extremely important in the initial phases when the team is small, when you are being scrappy, or you still haven't done you haven't got the customer validation, and you are trying to achieve an initial goal, right? So it becomes even more important, though company culture is important at every part of your company and a startup journey. So what I wanted to say is, what company culture is not, it's not perks and benefits that you think, right? Having your office in the best co-working space, and spoiling your team with all the extravagancies, right? All the luxuries while you are being bootstrapped, that definitely is not culture, right? So culture, as I said, is a shared values and beliefs. Let's take an example here. Let's take my example. So from the early on, we wanted to have a culture where people can make mistakes and they can own those mistakes, right? So how do you build that company culture? You build that company culture when you don't penalize people for the mistakes that they made. An example that I can recall is, we were bootstrapped in the initial journeys, didn't have customer validation, and one of my developers, right, so they left the server on. I mean, we had recently consumed our credits. uh, they were trying something. I think they switched off the server, but they did not delete it. Something happened, and at the end of the month we realized we have burned $1,000 on Amazon. Right now, that was a genuine mistake, right? What do you do in that case? I clearly remember we didn't penalize, or we didn't, I mean, we acknowledged that okay, it was a mistake, but it was a genuine and an honest mistake, and we just moved on, right? And that gave an impression to the team that okay, making mistakes is fine, right? But more important is owning those mistakes. So we made that developer own that mistake by getting into further understanding that okay, what they need to do with the server, creating a documentation that okay, once the same scenario happens the next time, how are they supposed to behave, and what are they supposed to turn down or turn on, right? So this is how you build a company culture, right? Now let's talk about, by the way, if you're thinking what I'm looking here, I have some notes prepared, right? So I'm talking through and just referring to those notes and talking directly from my notes. So why is company culture important? The primary reason is it brings alignment in your team, right? So again, I'll take an example here. In my company, ownership and timelines are extremely important, right? So we have built our culture in such a way that everyone has to own their timelines, and they have to be responsible for their work, right? Now, what it does is it brings alignments and ease of decision making. As a founder, I know that okay, this is the decision I am taking because what's important for me. My team is also clear that okay, if they get confused, or if they are given a choice to choose between multiple options, they know that they need to prioritize that option that puts the, using which they can own the responsibility, right? They can be responsible as well as they can adhere to the timelines that they have, right? A particular example is, let's say you have a party tonight, right? An office party, and your timelines, you have to deliver something tomorrow, right? So what can you do? Timeline is sacrosanct, right? Until and unless obviously you have a reason, you can skip the timelines, but the timelines are sacrosanct, right? So what essentially do you do? I mean, you adjust your schedule, come maybe an hour early, spend the lunch break, right? And then leave early for that party and release your work the next day, right? So the decision making becomes easy. Now, if you ask me, was it, did it happen in the team by itself? No, it did not happen, right? The ownership and the responsibility thing did not happen. As a founder, I had to push my team to own the things. Now, how does that happen? Let's talk about our development team, right? So, development team would have their stories and what we say, their work tracks in Jira, right? So every work track has a timeline associated with it, right? In Jira, every card of Jira that we made sure that our people are writing their comments in Jira regularly. What they did today, right? Just a one-liner or a two-liner. What they did today, was there any road blocker, right? What was the road blocker around, right? Is there any change in the timeline? Is that timeline, the change in timeline, genuine or not genuine, right? So I'll tell you what was happening earlier, right? Earlier, we used to say that, okay, ownership is important, responsibility is important, but how do I inculcate that, behavior, right? We were just doing a lip service. If someone delays their work, I don't have any method to record it. Worse, I didn't have any any actions that I should take once the once the thing that we want shouldn't happen, right? Then we intentionally started writing stories in Jira, right? Giving timelines to the stories or to the cards. Developers had a lot of resistance. They didn't want to do it because it adds to their work, right? But we made sure that they are doing it, and now everyone knows that, okay, who is meeting their timelines and who is not meeting their timelines. If they are not meeting their timelines, is it because it was a research work and let's say the test cases were not written properly, or was it something silly that we all have missed, or was it a genuine was it a genuine thing to miss the timeline, or was it something superficial which could have been avoided? So that's how building aspects of culture help the team align, right? Now I come to the last point of my thought here. How do you build a culture? Because it's extremely difficult, right? I think when you are small, when you are starting, right, culture is something that flows from the top. The way I behave as a founder, that's what defines my company culture. If I want all my team members and founding members to be disciplined, and I am the one who is the most indisciplined guy, right? I can't build a culture around discipline, right? I have to act what I say, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is, as a founder, I have to be intentional about building my culture. One important thing that I learned in my journey is culture is not a 1 day, 1 month, 1 year job. It's consistently building, it's consistently evolving, right? So as a founder, as a founding team member, you have to be very much intentional about the culture. What are the behaviors, what are the attitudes that you want to have in your team, and what are the attitudes that you don't want your team to display, or which are not accepted in your organization. The ones that you the things that you want, you have to come out and talk about them. Another mistake that we made in our initial days was we were not communicating enough. In my opinion, if you ask me what's culture all about, I would say it's 90% communication and 10% the other things that you do or that you think about, right? Because whatever you have in your mind, you have to get out and talk about that thing with your team, right? Culture is the same thing, right? If you want to inculcate some behaviors, some patterns, right, go out and talk to it about your team. I'll give you an example from our journey, right? So in the initial days, again, we had to fire someone for performance related issues, right? Now we again, we were novices, right? And we wanted to be goody, right? We wanted to be good with everyone. So we didn't tell that person that, okay, we are releasing them or we are firing them because of lack of performance. We said something, I don't even remember what we said, right? But the worst thing that we did was we didn't go out to the team and inform them that, okay, the person whom we had to fire was because of performance issues. Again, we just say something convoluted, and that gave the wrong message that, okay, people didn't know what's happening, right? They were like, okay, the person has been fired, but what excuse, I would say it as an excuse, what excuse we as founders were giving to the team that didn't go well along, right? Because obviously that was an excuse, we were also making it up. Now if I see in hindsight, you be communicative. Over communication is better, but under communication is really harmful for your culture, right? So if you have to fire someone for performance issues, be open about it, right? Go out to your team and tell them that, okay, there was a performance issue, this is how this happened, this is the reason we have to take this decision. And be open that, I have a high performer and a very low performer, and it's not fair for the team if someone is pulling them down and who is a low performer. It's not good for that person as well as not good for the entire team. So this is what you have to do. Come out openly, communicate, most of the times over communicate, so that you don't leave any doubt in the minds of your team, right? And essentially, as I said, why is culture important? Because if you are clear in your thought and if you are communicative, right, your team will align with you, right? The resistances that we generally see, that, okay, I want my team to do this, but the team is not going that way, or my members or my other co-founder is not doing like that, right? That's because we are not clear in our communication, and we are not clear in the results and expectations that we are having, right? And that's essentially what your company culture is. My closing note on it: if you are a startup founder, don't worry about the timeline in which you have to build a company culture. All you have to do is be intentional about it, right? Be clear that, okay, you have to talk to your team. These are the behaviors that I want in my company. These are the behaviors that I won't tolerate in my company, or what's my degree of tolerance, right? You just go out and you communicate. So yeah, I think this is all from my side. If you have your own culture stories, you're a startup founder or you're managing a team and you have your own culture stories, do drop them in the comments below, and I would love to hear them out. Till then, stay awesome and keep executing. Take care. Bye.